Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Qubit Tech Talk. We're coming to you live from Qubit's worldwide headquarters here in sunny LaPorte, Indiana. I have Josh Mandover with me today.
Howdy.
We are going to be talking about password management. So a little bit of a disclaimer. We don't sell password management, so we can make some recommendations on some products that we've used, and we're really going to talk a little bit about our journey today. We've had quite a few of our customers talk to us about this recently, which kind of like led to the topic. But like I'm going to speak first about kind of like my personal journey, because I know that everybody out there is like, well, how do I deal with passwords, and what do I do? So I started out, my passwords were all just on a notebook, right? I had this notebook and I start writing down passwords. This is 20 years ago. And then I started to use a product called PassPack, which I still kind of use. And there's like one main password that I need to log in, and then it then cross-references with an IP address potentially, or like a secondary password to get into it, and then you could store all your passwords there. And that's worked out, fairly well. I recently, though, a friend of mine, Michael, told me about LastPass, and so I started to use LastPass about 2 months ago. And so now my password world, so to speak, from kind of a personal standpoint, is I have to remember one main password for LastPass, and it's kind of long. And then there's a Chrome plugin. I have an app on my phone. Some of you watching this you're probably way ahead of me on this, or there's other products like LastPass, but it can automatically generate like 20 character passwords, really long passwords that take a long time to hack. I just have to remember the one password for me to get in, and then it then will automatically populate password fields and such. That I feel a lot safer. They have a test that you can run against like everybody else in LastPass, and I'm now in the like 90 percentile. The other thing I strongly advocate is, we've talked about this before, is two-factor authentication, right? So everything that we're doing, everything that I'm doing that I can do two-factor authentication for, I am doing. I use Microsoft Authenticator as the app. In case some of the financial things that I'm in, they require you to have an authentication app. And so any of that two-factor that you can do just makes your world all that much safer. There is a website that my friend Michael told me about. It's called the number one login, so my one login. And you can click on resources there and password strength, and you can put in your password, and it will say how long that password would take to hack. And so it was kind of disturbing to me. So the password that I've used, like for all of my stuff for years, I put that in and it said it could crack that in 1 hour. And so that was kind of disturbing. Now I put in some of my LastPass passwords. I just put one in this morning and checked it, and it said it would be 1 billion trillion years before they could hack it. Now, that was 20 characters with capitals, lowercase, number signs, that kind of stuff. So that made me feel a lot better. And then my password to get into LastPass would take 406 years to hack. So I feel a lot safer between those longer passwords and the two-factor authentication for sure. Obviously, in today's world, you have to be very sensitive to these sorts of things. So that's kind of a personal journey. I'm sure there's people watching this that have been on some of a parallel path to that. But I wanted Josh to talk about from an organizational standpoint. I remember at one point when we first got started, kind of having more and more passwords to keep track of, and this has sort of been like late '90s, early 2000s. We had a spreadsheet that
A lot of people do.
that we would have a password, right, to get
Yeah.
into the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
right, that you would then put all the other passwords for internal stuff, some customer-facing things, and then that would be out on a shared drive. And then we, corporately, we evolved into PassPack,
Right.
right? So there was like one master, and it wasn't like my is like my initial and my last name, and this one was like my full name, and was like, how you could kind of log into it. And then there was like 2 or 3 people that knew what that main password was.
Right.
And then whenever anybody would create a new password for a company,
Yeah.
they would have to tell you, and then you'd have to put it in, and it was relatively cumbersome. We had everybody.
Everyone was in there and it was working, but it was a management nightmare
Right.
for an organization.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe tell
Yeah.
viewers what we're doing now.
We've moved on to Bitwarden. It's a relatively newcomer, but they really made some headway, especially for organizational management. Now our engineers can share out a password to the other engineers, and they don't have to contact an administrator to share it out. It's just automatically shared. It's got a much more of an enterprise organizational structure feel for groups and group permissions to different passwords, and everyone has their own login, and it's just come a long way. And one of the reasons we went with it is that it works on every platform and had 2-factor authentication. Besides having your big long master password, you also had to enter a 2-factor to get into Bitwarden, which is important for these days.
Right. Yeah.
We used to have a like Ryan said, a spreadsheet, and there's still quite a few people that have spreadsheets, and they moved from spreadsheets to some sort of online one, and now the online ones have moved towards more organizational structure, just like your Active Directory and all that kind of management. But I would say the most important thing these days to look for is 2-factor.
Yep.
To secure your password manager.
Right. And so the things that I know that I picked up on when we were kind of evaluating this was, if an employee moves on, whether they get fired, they quit, whatever, you can just kind of delete their access to everything.
Correct.
Right.
We don't lose the passwords that they created.
Correct. And then another thing, that we had talked about was the 2-factor, right? That was a big deal.
That's a big deal.
For us. The other thing I liked was that we can, within Bitwarden, we can mandate, passwords have to be a certain length, character, makeup, whatever, right? So if somebody tries to save a password that's not.
Yeah, we can look for common passwords used, set up a requirement for the password strength. We can also do scan. Some of these password managers out there, Bitwarden's starting to implement it where they scan the dark web for if an email or login names with passwords associated to see if they've been cracked already, to let you know, hey, this is a password you need to change. All those tools are awesome to have, especially when you're dealing with data that's sensitive.
Right. And so we talk about this often, that every layer of security that you add makes life just a little bit
More difficult.
Yeah, right. So like
the spreadsheet was real easy.
Right. And so I use the analogy of this, like when I was a kid, like we never locked our door. Right. So I was fortunate. I lived in a street in a little town that we never locked our door. Right. Well, then then you have a lock on the door, right? So now it takes a little bit longer to get into the house, right? And then if you live in a little bit more dangerous area, they want more stuff, you put another lock on your door, right? So you can still get in, right? It just takes just a little bit longer to get in, and that's kind of the way it goes with network security,
yeah, for sure.
Kind of in general. So you have to find that happy medium. We didn't have a gate with barbed wire and dogs and all that stuff to get in, but just you have a couple locks to get in to keep a lot of people out. And then the cost. So like all of these products, cost a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Right. To get into it, when we first started with PassPack, it was free. Right, up to 100 passwords, and which we got over that pretty quick, and then it paid cost and things. So, the more enterprise, the more feature set, generally the more. But they're not insurmountable costs like at all.
And there still are some on-prem. If people don't want to put it in the cloud, a lot of these are cloud-based.
Right.
There are still some on-prem stuff. Vycotic, it's called Vycotic Secret Server is one of them. As soon as you move on-prem, then you have to worry about securing it and backing it up. But if some places still want on-prem, there's options out there.
Yep. So that's the end of our Tech Talk today. thanks for everybody for watching, and hopefully you learned a little bit of something on password management. Thank you.